Hi, everybody. My name is Lewis Wickham. I'm the Director of Robotics Education Programs at the School of Engineering at Johns Hopkins University. And I'm pleased to welcome you to an information session on the Master of Science in Engineering and Robotics at Hopkins. This is pretty informal, so I'd encourage everybody to please feel free to interrupt me at any time. And the agenda is we have a pretty terrific line of speakers that doesn't include me to speak with you today, and I'd like to introduce them first. Then I'm going to blab on for a little while about the program, but hopefully not too long. And if you can make it through that, then you get to the good part, which is to hear from our students. And so let me introduce them. Okay. I've already introduced myself. I'm a robotics researcher. I do dynamics and control and navigation, and I teach courses in those areas. And I've been doing this for a long time. It turns out you can make a living making robots and researching them, and I found it enormously fun. And uh, and the person that you've probably interacted with quite a bit is Ms. Allison Moro, who's the beating heart of our robotics program. Would you like to introduce yourself, Allison?
Hey everyone, my name is Allison. I've been with robotics since the Robotics MSE since its inception. And I've been with Hopkins for about 14 years, so I can answer pretty much most of your questions.
And Mr. Timothy Bernard, who's a second year robotics MSc student. Would you like to introduce yourself, Timothy?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tim. I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and I decided I want to get a more focused education in robotics, especially concerning software. So I'm doing the perception and cognitive systems track. And yeah, if you have any questions about doing the coursework option or really anything else about the program, let me know.
And everybody's kindly offered their email address, which I just put in the chat. And so if you'd like to have one-on-one conversation or correspondence with any of our speakers, then please feel free to contact them. Next is Cora Dimon.
Hi, I'm Cora. I went to Hopkins for my undergrad in mechanical engineering and applied math and stat, and then continued on technically in the fifth year master's in robotics, and did that while I was working at the Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. I'm currently in a PhD program at Hopkins, focusing in robotic control, and also still working part-time at the APL.
Right. And Cora's taken courses with me, so she can tell you all the horror stories about my teaching.
No.
And Kendra Shah is also a second year MSc student in the Robotics MSc program.
Hey everyone, as Professor Wickham said, I'm in my final semester. I pursued the master's essay or thesis option. I'm pursuing my thesis advised by Professor Matthias Ambara, who leads the arcade lab. Like Tim, I also completed the perception and cognitive systems track. Before coming to Hopkins, I pursued a BSc in bioengineering as well as a BS in economics from UPenn, and also worked as a life sciences / medical technology consultant with Accenture. And then I was really passionate about human AI interaction and in mixed reality environments in particular for applications such as improved accessibility and enhancing rehabilitation procedures. So my current thesis is trying to work on performing eye tracking in unconstrained environments. And I'm happy to chat about the thesis option, any courses, and the program, and as much of life in Baltimore as I can speak to from my short time there before the pandemic set in.
Terrific, thank you. Many of you are familiar with Johns Hopkins University, some aren't. It turns out that we have more than just a school of medicine and hospital, although that is what we're probably most known for. Johns Hopkins is the research university in North America that has the largest research portfolio. We have twice as much research funding as our nearest competition, which is the University of Michigan, which is a great school. And we like to think in the School of Engineering that we're focused on engineering education. We're focused on doing leading edge research, and we're also focused on our research having an effect on society, so meaningful translation. The Whiting School of Engineering, which is the name of our School of Engineering here at Hopkins, is located on the Homewood campus, which is not in the middle of downtown, but it's about 33 blocks north of downtown. So it's an urban but not skyscraper area, and the campus is nice and green and beautiful. The School of Engineering has 9 departments and a whole bunch of research centers, including our Robotics Research Center. And we have extensive collaboration with the different divisions of the university and other universities worldwide. And in addition to the research and academic things that draw most of our students, we also have additional career resources for career development and entrepreneurship. So a number of our students are doing startups when they graduate. And I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our robotics research and master's program. I'll be brief so that you can talk to the students. Robotics started at Johns Hopkins University back in around 1960 with the development of this little tiny robot here, which was about half a meter in diameter and a little less than half a meter tall. It was programmed in analog circuitry, and it was built at the Applied Physics Laboratory where Cora works, and it would roam around the hallways of the laboratory, and when it was getting low on power, it would find a plug in the wall and plug itself in. So it was referred to as the Hopkins Beast. And that was before I was born, so I never actually use the Hopkins Beast. I came here in 1995 together with Russ Taylor, my colleague, who's one of the leading, perhaps the leading researcher in medical robotics. And we came here to start a program in robotics and joining Greg Trichian and Jerry Prince. And since then, we've been building up the program, and we've hired a whole bunch of faculty who are quite wonderful and with fantastic students. So the current center, our current robotics center, was founded in 2007. And the Robotics MSE program was started in about 2013. The center which runs the Robotics MSE is the Laboratory for Computational Sensing and Robotics. I was the founding director back in 2007, and one of the things that we did during my tenure as director was to create the Robotics MSE. And it's a center that functions kind of like a department. So we have employees, we have faculty, we've got students and education programs, as well as programs for undergraduates, such as our robotics minor and our minor in computer integrated surgery. You're all here to discuss and investigate the Robotics MSE program. And briefly, the Robotics MSE, if you're coming in with a bachelor's degree from another university, will typically take 1.5 or 2 years to complete. And the degree requirements are that you need to take 8 courses, and some of the courses, there are 2 required core courses, and then there's 4 courses to fulfill one of 6 different focus tracks, and then 2 electives. And then, in addition to the 8 courses, you need to either take 2 more courses for a total of 10, and that's referred to as the coursework option, or in the research option, you do your 8 courses and you complete and you write a research thesis, a master's thesis. At Hopkins, it's called an essay. And we've just created a new internship program, and nobody's actually done it, but we're piloting it in this next academic year. And the idea is that you'd be able to do an internship at a company for an entire semester as an alternative to doing a master's thesis. And that's all written up in the Robotics MSE Advising Manual, and on the same website that you looked at, the LCSR website that you looked at to find out about the master's program, under the advising page, you can download the advising manual. It will tell you all about these different options. So we've got 6 tracks in automation science and engineering, controls, medical robotics, perception and cognitive systems, quite popular these days, robotics and general robotics. And they roughly correspond to our research areas. So let me briefly mention the areas that were strong in research. So human-machine collaborative systems is an area that that is very important to us, and it's critically important to things like medical robotics and rehabilitation. And that's Dr. Brown working with one of the students in his laboratory in LCSR. This is my area, modeling, dynamics, navigation, and control. And I'm interested in all of those things. And I have research projects going right now in underwater robotics and also in space telerobotics. Perception and cognitive systems is a very active area of research these days. Computer vision is white hot, and as well as artificial intelligence and sensing. So we've got a number of students working in this area. And both Timothy and Kinjal are focusing their efforts in this area. Medical robotics is probably our signature research area, and we've got some really world-leading medical robotics researchers, and as well as terrific courses in this area. And robotics in extreme environment is also where I play. Underwater, in the ocean, and in space are extreme environments. I would argue that inside the human body for medical robotics is an extreme environment. And last but not least is bio-inspired robotics. We've got several faculty members, including Noah Cowan and Chen Li, who are trying to reverse engineer how organisms navigate and how they locomote, and trying to use those ideas to develop robots that can navigate, sense, and locomote like natural organisms. So, so tough questions. One of the things that we want to be really upfront about is we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's not over yet. And what's going to happen in the fall? The answer is we're not 100% sure, because the university, Allison and I don't make the final call. The deans and the provost and the president make the final call on exactly what goes on. And they want to move back to full-time in-person classes as quickly as possible. But they also want our students to be safe. I think we have one of the best COVID testing arrangements of any university I know. Right now, the undergraduates are getting tested 3 times a week on campus, and the rest of us who are on campus, like me, get tested once a week, and I get the test results back within 12 hours, which is pretty cool. So right now, what we do know is that fall 2021 classes are expected to be a mix of in-person and online classes, and many classes are expected to offer a fully online option, however, most I would say. And in fall 2021, if you want to begin your MSc classes from home, you can do that. Right now, we don't know of any obstacle to you beginning your MSc studies from home, whether it's here in the United States or overseas. This may change, and as the information we're given from our university leadership changes, we will let you know. And if you are not a U.S. citizen and you intend to move to Baltimore for the fall 2021 term, it may be required that you take at least one in-person class on campus. Again, we're not 100% certain what the rules will be in the fall, but we're giving you the best information that we have. And when the information changes, we'll let you know. The one thing that we do know about, because we actually make the decision on this, is that if you choose to accept the offer of admission to Robotics MSE, and you decide you want to defer because you don't want to do the online learning thing, then you can certainly defer at no cost for a semester or for an entire year, and would like you to let us know if you choose to defer by August 15th. Do you have anything to add to this, Allison?
No, I think this is about what we know right now. And I want you all to know that as soon as we have more information, we do send it out. It's not like I sit on it and don't tell anyone. So we will let you know as soon as we know more.
Yeah. So that's the end of me blabbing, and let's get to the good stuff. I'd like to. You've already met the 3 students who have kindly agreed to participate this morning, and I'd like to just turn this meeting over to them, and for them to each say a few words about about how they came to Hopkins, what their experience has been in the Robotics MSE, and anything else that they would like to share with you, and what they're planning on doing after they graduate. So Kendra, would you like to begin?
Sure. As I mentioned in my brief introduction, I graduated in about 2016 from undergrad and then worked for a little bit and then came to Hopkins really with the hope to get a more focused education on robotics and human AI systems in particular. So I've taken courses that most of like the standard software courses right now, like machine learning, deep learning, and that variant, but also courses such as haptics, as well as human computer interaction to gain a better understanding of some of those research areas. And that's kind of how I came to my thesis project, which is a mix of a little bit of machine learning and deep learning, as well as a lot of human AI interaction. So actually recently I've been trying to run a user study within the constraints of everything going on, which has definitely been an interesting experience and really good, just real world experience, a little bit about how to navigate such a large project in unideal circumstances. So from end to end, it's been a really great learning experience. And I've gotten, the great thing about the robotics program is like LCSR really lets you structure your degree the way you want to structure it. So I had originally started out on the medical robotics track. And as I started taking courses, really realized that I loved the perception and cognitive systems track courses a lot. And so was able to, as I continued my degree, kind of shift my focus into that track and continue to delve deeper into those areas. Following graduation, I'm still working on figuring that out, but I'm hoping to work in a research-focused job, whether that's in another lab or also there's a lot of research taking place in industry now. So hoping to work on an R&D team or a even like traditional academically focused research team in industry. So I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time for questions, but happy to take any questions related to that.
Yeah, we'll have a Q&A session afterwards, but if students have specific questions for Kinjal, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. Okay, how about we move on to Timothy? Thank you, Kinjal.
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned a bit in my introduction that I started out in mechanical engineering. I started this program right after undergrad. I kind of got interested in robotics during undergrad. I really liked like classes in like dynamics and control. And then I also spent a summer here doing research with Dr. Brown, doing haptics for medical robotics. So that kind of sparked my interest in robotics. I really enjoyed like working here. That was back in 2018, wow. And it was really fun. So I applied to a number of schools, but I decided to come here just because I like the environment here. I like the research they do here. I was also originally planning on working in medical robotics, but I too also switched to the perception and cognitive systems track. And I'm now looking at more just autonomous systems in general. But yeah, definitely if you have any questions about that, I also want to mention that I did most of my coursework has been like computer science classes, doing a lot of software, which is kind of a hard turn from like a pure mechie background. Yes, if you have any questions about that transition or about anything else related to that, let me know.
I have a quick question. I guess this is for both. What made you switch away from the medical robotics track?
I'm happy to answer first. It was partially a switch because of what my thesis ended up being, which also shifted a little bit because of the fact that everything was now remote. I had originally been envisioning something that brought in a little bit more haptics into it, and would have potentially been a little bit more medical robotics focused. But because just of the nature of what it turned out to be, I think it fit in. I had taken the coursework actually to be either track. And I think my specialization fit more into the perception and cognitive systems track. So especially as I'm applying to future positions, I wanted to represent myself with the expertise that I had. So I think perception and cognitive systems fit that the best.
Yeah, I actually I've completed all the coursework for medical robotics except for one class, so I was going to take computer integrated surgery 2 this semester, but I opted to take nonlinear controls. So it just sort of fit best with what I was doing right now. It's a great track. It's really cool, but it didn't fit for me at the moment. But yeah, I kind of, what people mentioned earlier, like when you come here, you can really take whatever you want. So that's why I really love this degree program, because all the classes I've taken are the ones I wanted to take.
Thank you, guys.
Cora, you're up.
Yeah. So I ended up at Hopkins for my undergrad and pretty much never left. So it was a natural extension to continue on to the Robotics MSE. I always wanted to take more robotics classes, but with my double major, never really was able to fit them in until my senior year. So it kind of just made sense to merge into the MSE. As I was doing that, I started working while I finished it, and I really appreciated that experience personally, since it gave me more like perspective. I felt like a lot of the classes I was taking beforehand, it was hard to really connect it to like, what does industry do with this stuff and stuff like that. So I thought that was a cool perspective and definitely helped me like get more out of the classes. And then now I'm back doing my PhD because the reverse happened, where I felt like in industry, I wanted to really dive into a problem more than I felt like I had the opportunity to do. So that got me back at Hopkins yet again. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions. My track in robotics, now that they were talking about it, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I ended up on the dynamics and control track. I fit similarly into them into a couple different tracks. It's definitely very flexible, and I appreciated that I just like took the classes that I wanted to take, and then at the end kind of like saw which beans fell into which jars and which one I wanted to represent myself as after. So I really appreciated that flexibility because I just wanted to take the classes that sounded most interesting.
Sorry, not to jump in here again, just a lot of what Timothy and Cora were saying reminded me of like part of the reason I chose Hopkins as well as like being a bioengineering undergrad. I don't know if many of you are bioengineering, but those who have done bioengineering, I think, can relate to the fact that you kind of you get a little bit of a taste of a lot of different engineering styles. And I kind of really liked that about the bioengineering program, but did feel like I needed more depth. And that's what I thought that robotics, especially at Hopkins, allowed me to do. I kind of could, while I ended up being more software, when I started out, I had the flexibility to take courses from electrical engineering or computer science or mechanical. So there was a lot of flexibility to kind of really find out the kind of engineer you wanted to be, which I think it sounds like Cora and Tim had very similar experiences as well.
Lewis, if you're talking, you're on mute.
How's that?
Much better.
So let me just wrap up the talking head part of this. This is for my part, and say that we have a great number of of graduate student organizations on campus. Some of my favorites are listed here. And we also have a graduate student group within LCSR. And our students all are asked to attend the weekly Wednesday robotics seminar at noon. And that's been virtual. And you students who are interested in the program can start attending that seminar whenever you want. Just go to the LCSR webpage, and the links are there. And we've just started another seminar series at our students' request. It's a Monday noontime seminar where our graduate students and postdocs are giving seminars on Monday at noon. So that we found that during the shutdown, we were losing track of what different students were working on. And I know what my students are working on, but I don't know what, say, Dr. Brown's students are working on. So we started a new seminar series just this semester. And I'm not going to say much about Baltimore other than I think it's a great city. I've lived here for over 20 years and I love it. And if you have any questions about Baltimore, then we'd be happy to answer them. Most of our students live near the Homewood campus, within walking distance. And I, in fact, live within walking and biking distance of the Homewood campus as well. I'm about 1.5 kilometers from my office and lab. And our alumni for the Robotics MSE, I'd say that it varies from year to year, but something like a quarter of our robotics MSE students see the MSE as a stepping stone to applying to PhD programs, and the balance of our students see it as the MS, as the new BS for entry-level positions in robotics industry worldwide. And we have students everywhere now, both MSc graduates and PhD graduates, and it's really great to when they come back and visit and they tell us about their adventures. So now I'd like to take questions. So take questions from any one of us, and we also have some questions that were students submitted ahead of time when they registered for this information session. So you're welcome to ask questions of any of us or all of us.
Also, if you're more comfortable and want to put questions in the chat, you can do that too.
Yep. So one question that I get often, and it was asked by a student when they registered, was what would you recommend that students take for courses? And I can answer that. So share this top one. So this is the Graduate Student Advising Manual. Can you see that? This is our Robotics Graduate Student Advising Manual, and you can download it from the LCSR website, lcsr.jhu.edu. And the degree requirements are already described, and the core courses that all of our students take are algorithms for sensor-based robotics and robot devices, kinematics, dynamics, and control. And so you should take those your first year. Don't take them same semester because that's too hard. And you can take them in order. We offer these courses both spring and fall. And the algorithms course is more software intensive, and the RDKDC course, I would say, is more robotics math intensive, although they're both mathy. And I recommend to my advisees that in addition to these two as a core course, they take a graduate course in applied math. And for example, the mathematical methods for engineers, which is taught in fall term in the mechanical engineering department, is a good thing to take. Because for those of you who are coming, I worked for several years before I came back to grad school, and I'd forgotten a lot of it, what little math I learned. And so it was kind of a shock. And you'll find that the math requirements for a graduate robotics degree is going to be more math than you probably had as an undergraduate, if you're anybody but Cora, because she did a mechanical engineering and a math degree at the same time. So that's my recommendation for 3 of your 6 courses in your first year. And then the other courses, it really depends on what you love.
I had a question related to courses, actually. Maybe I'll
Yes.
piggyback on that. With classes online, or some classes online, how would that impact any like hands-on courses? Or I guess how many of the courses are hands-on, actually, working with hardware and building robots, I guess, versus more, I guess, lecture or theory based?
So it has affected the amount of online things that we do. And so there hasn't been as much hands-on playing with hardware in courses as there is normally. Hopefully that's going to be changing this next academic year. So for example, in mechanical engineering, we have a course that's called mechatronics. It's sort of a junior, senior level course, and the instructor for that course basically put together packages of a whole kit of robotic parts and CPUs and things like that, and shipped one to every student in the course. So they have they have a care package of things, and then the course Robot Systems Programming, which I created about 8 years ago, is intended to be a second year robotics course. So after you've had the core robotics courses and you want to you've learned all the math and you're an intermediate C++ programmer, and the course is actually to build robotic systems. Cora took this course with me when she was in the master's program. And we teach students how to use ROS. And so for that course, it's a combination. Some students are doing projects in simulation using Gazebo, and some students we're shipping them little robots, so they're using Turtlebots and things like that, at their places. So it's a combination of things. And this semester we upgraded the robotics teaching lab to add an additional 12 workstations, pretty powerful ones with lots of memory and 10 cores. So that some of the students' laptops aren't powerful enough to run ROS, and so they can remotely log in to these workstations, and they have GPUs, lots of cores, and lots of memory. So I'd say that it has negatively affected the amount of hands-on work that people do with robots as part of the program, but it hasn't reduced it to zero.
Actually, it was just when I took haptics in the fall with Dr. Brown. And Kendall was actually my TA, which is very helpful.
I was just about to talk about that class too.
Yeah, so they actually shipped these hap kits, these interface devices they ship to people who are international or across the country. And everyone else was allowed to pick them up, which was nice. So I think a lot of people are being accommodating, which is good. And I still learned. So.
I will say very candidly that from the TA perspective, whenever students had like hardware issues, just become much harder to debug when we can't be there in person and actually be able to observe what's going on. So that was definitely a challenge, but I think one that everyone is very understanding of, and also trying their best to like over video chat or over different platforms, like trying their best to like overcome those challenges. So it's definitely a doable, although difficult.
So a couple questions that were submitted when students registered. A student asked, what are the research assistant and teaching assistant options available in the Robotics MSE program? So as a Robotics MSE student, you can serve as a teaching assistant, and Control is a living, breathing example of that. And the way teaching assistants work for most of our master students is basically you get paid an hourly rate for it, so you get 500, sort of between $500 and $1,500 depending on how many hours per week and how many weeks you're responsible for, and that's paid by the department that is running the course, or LCSR. And the research assistantships for master's students are typically kind of like a part-time job, and we don't have any research assistantships that pay full tuition and stipend. And the deal that you'll find at most master's programs around the country is that the students are self-supporting, and they can earn a little bit of money as TAs or as RAs, but that essentially is a part-time job. And that's different from PhD programs, where in most top PhD programs, the students are supported by the research grants of their advisors or by independent scholarships they get. And
so I like this question in the chat. What do you guys do other than classes? I don't know how easy this is.
I'm also happy to kick it off again. Before the pandemic hit, I was part of Women of Whiting, which is the Women in Engineering organization at the graduate level. And I also really enjoyed exploring the harbor. So on the weekends, so my roommate and I actually lived in Mount Vernon. So I would take the Hopkins shuttle to campus every morning and evening. Which was, I was originally, I'm not a morning person, so was always scared of making it to class on time, but it actually comes frequently enough that I think I was only ever maximum like 8 to 10 minutes late, depending on how quickly I could run from the shuttle stop to class. But Mount Vernon is also a great place to live. I lived right across from the train station, which was also really nice, and being able to visit family who lived up in Jersey, as well as visiting friends in New York and things like that. But honestly, my first semester was quite difficult. So outside of courses, I unfortunately was mostly just exploring on the weekends and had to work very hard to keep up, just mostly because my background wasn't necessarily in robotics or computer science. So there was a lot of self-learning I had to do in addition to the courses that I took.
Yeah, some of the extracurriculars that Dr. Wickham mentioned. So I'm in Black Grad Student Association. We do some fun events. We also do constructive events for career-wise stuff, which has been fun. A little bit different during the pandemic, but still doing things. And then I'm also in the Graduate Christian Fellowship. And I know there's a lot of other religious organizations too, which has been fun connecting with those people. So there's definitely a lot of stuff to do on campus, and there's some good hiking spots in Maryland too, or nearby if you're willing to drive. So if you ever want any recommendations, let me know.
Quick plug for the coffee shop near campus whenever it opens up again. I loved going to sit there and work. I think it's called Bird in Hand.
Let's see. Hello, I'm interested in space robotics. So a good place to look would be the website space@jhu.edu. So that's a website for a group of faculty that I'm associated with that is interested in fostering more activity in space-related research around the university. And Allison, maybe you could answer this one. Are there going to be any caps in the number of offline classes that we can enroll this fall? I guess offline means in person.
The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is probably not, but I still don't know. So I expect there to be many more in-person classes than there have been this last year. And I believe that you will, if you want to be in person, you will be able to be in person, assuming there's no dramatic change in the trajectory of COVID right now. But again, I can't make any promises right at this moment.
Students, there's several questions here in the pre-registration, but also online about how do you find an advisor for if you're going to do a thesis option, the essay option. And what you should do is, let me share my screen. So when you enroll in the, when you enroll in our program, Allison Moro will assign you an academic advisor. And if you have a preference for an academic advisor, then please suggest it to Allison. And so hopefully you see my web browser. So to find a potential research advisor for your, to do a thesis, I would recommend that you go to research here, and you'll see a list of laboratories in LCSR, and each one of them has a web page for the laboratory and a PI. And you can also look at the faculty page. And so if you want to find out about Muniat Bell, who does photoacoustic ultrasound, this is her web page, and read up about it. And so if you want to, and if you want to drill deeper, read up on the faculty's web page and download some of the papers, and then also go to their Google Scholar page. So if you want to find out about me, go to my Google Scholar profile, and here it is. And you can see this paper has been cited 692 times, but it's old, right? 1999. I'm not working in that area anymore. So sort by year the newest one first, and then look at what the faculty member has been doing in the last 2 years, and then download some papers that they've published in the last 2 years and read them. And then reach out to the faculty member and say, hello, my name is, I've read your paper called Adaptive Bias and Attitude Observer on the Special Orthogonal Group that you published in the International Journal of Robotics Research. I'm really interested in potentially doing a master's thesis. You know, could I meet with you and could I meet with your graduate students and hopefully visit your lab when the labs are open. So so do your homework and read some papers, and then when you reach out to a potential research advisor, do so having informed yourself about what they do. Don't reach out to them and say, I'm interested in doing a master's degree. Can you tell me what you do? Because I don't have the internet where I live, and I couldn't do any research. So in reading the papers, you'll find that some of the research is really interesting to you, and some is less interesting. So you can decide what moves you, and so you should do what you love. So that's a good formula. And your academic advisor can also, you can also discuss with your academic advisor candidates for doing, advising your master's degree. And I think it's safe to say that almost all of our master's advisors have some association with LCSR. Can you comment on that, Allison?
You mean the academic advisors or the research advisors?
Research advisors.
Probably 90% of them do. And if you have one who is not, then you're expected to have a second reader who is, to just confirm that, yes, it's a robotics project.
And several students have asked recently, if you're in the Robotics MSE program, can you just transition somehow magically to the PhD program? And the answer is no. If you're in the MSE program, or if you're where you are today, you can apply to the PhD program, but there's no transfer or transition from the MSE to the PhD. So a number of our master's students apply to the PhD program here and elsewhere, and many of them get into PhD programs here and elsewhere. But being a master's student, I'd say that being a master's student in robotics gives you an advantage, broadly speaking, if you're applying to a robotics PhD program, because you have more of a track record, and you'll be applying at a more advanced level. But being a master's student in robotics at Hopkins doesn't give you any unique advantage in applying to the PhD program. We get applicants from all over the world, let's see. Other questions? master's program, how long does it take to different degrees? Master's degree is usually 1.5 or 2 years. 2 years is probably the most common, I think. Is that correct, Allison?
Yep,
And,
that's right.
and some students who are doing thesis work will take a relatively few number of courses in their final semester so they can concentrate on their thesis. And to finish a PhD, if you start counting from your bachelor's degree, it typically takes between 5 and 6 years. Other questions?
So we have a lot of questions about funding opportunities, and I think we've answered some of them. I know we've answered the ones about TAs and RAs. I just want to let you guys know that we really don't have a whole lot of funding opportunities within LCSR in general. Your best bet is to look for outside funding sources if you have not already received any kind of an offer.
Yeah, so if you are a U.S. citizen, then I recommend that you look at the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowships and the National Defense Science and Engineering Research Fellowships and the SMART Fellowships. So those are all great programs that fund a number of our students. And if you're not a U.S. citizen, then I'd recommend that you start by looking at the Fulbright program for your country. And we get a number of students here on Fulbright scholarships.
I like this question. It's what is the ideal time for fall 2021 students to relocate to Baltimore? And what is parking like an option? What is parking on campus a good option, or public transportation, and other general, broadly speaking, Baltimore questions? Do our students want to talk about that at all?
So Cora and you want to address that from a student perspective?
Yeah. Ideal time to relocate is definitely based on what you want. I think personally it's good to get familiar with the area before you start classes and stuff like that. So I would get to Baltimore sometime in August probably. But the driving, I can answer that question. So I live in Columbia, Maryland, which is like the middle of the state. And when classes were in person, I would commute up. There's definitely a lot of options for street parking around campus. There's also a couple lots on campus that you can get in the pool for to be able to park if you're a graduate student. Those are obviously more costly than parking on the street, but there's always sufficient options in my opinion. It's definitely tricky since it is the city, and public transportation would definitely be preferred in my opinion. The Hopkins shuttle, the like JHMI shuttle, is really convenient. As Kendall mentioned, it goes from campus to Mount Vernon to the Med campus, so it really covers a good swath of the city to be able to get places. There's also a lot of like the Charm City buses are all free and also cover a good chunk of the city and are very convenient. So a lot of options.
But your situation is relatively unusual in that you live a good distance from campus. I'd say that most master's students live in Charles Village or Hampton, you know, in one of the neighborhoods right adjacent to campus, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd definitely say most people are around that area, some in Mount Vernon, which is like 10-ish minutes away, but my situation's definitely uncommon.
So what are some career opportunities to help students find internships and jobs? Lewis, do you want to take that one?
Sure. We have a life design group, which is what career counseling is now called. I'm not a big fan of the title, but we have in the course of every semester we've got several. We have a seminar series, and we devote several of those seminars to career development issues. The recent ones that we've had include, we had a panel of some of our art graduates, as well as leading robotics practitioners in the field, who spoke about how they made their careers in robotics in industry and academia. And we had just last week, Chen Ming Huang and Jeremy Brown gave a seminar on on experimental design, how you actually design experiments for doing experiments with human subjects. And so there are campus career fairs that the Life Design group holds, and we also once a year in LCSR have an industry day, and we're trying to figure out how to do industry day this next year virtually because we won't have an online option. And that is typically well attended by members of industry, and we have an event at the industry day for students to meet with industry members who are visiting the university.
So is a deferral option available for, I'm assuming you mean the program itself? Yes. If you want to defer for up to a year, send me an email. We can talk about it. And I will probably almost definitely approve it. So, and there's no, you don't need to give me an excuse or anything. Just say, hey, I want to defer. All I need to know. I think the next question, is there a virtual walkthrough or another way to see the research and educational facilities? I'm not positive. I know that the communications department was filming a virtual walkthrough to show you the research and educational facilities. I have not yet seen that walkthrough, so if I get it, I will send it out.
We do have a video that we produced that I could show. We decided not to show in the interest of time. That's posted on the LCSR website. If you go to the academics page, there's a video on Hopkins robotics that shows a variety of our laboratories and our students.
The cost of living in Baltimore, if you go to the what is Hopkins cost page on the JHU website, we'll give you a breakdown of costs, including cost of living in general. So I don't know if Louis, are you pulling that up or no?
No, but I can say that the cost of living in Baltimore is low in comparison to most cities.
It's definitely cheaper than DC or New York, which would be the sort of closest ones, if that helps. Do we get free or discounted access to local museums? Well, the very good news is that many of Baltimore's museums are free anyway. Including the Walters Art Gallery and the Baltimore Museum of Art. The Baltimore Museum of Art is just at the south end of campus. I mean, it's just off campus, but it's right there and kind of right behind the main LCSR building, Hackerman Hall. So I highly recommend it. They're beautiful museums. I believe there are student discounts at some of the other museums in the city. But those are the two that I always think of first. So I personally really like our National Aquarium, which is in Baltimore. So I just like to go look at very chill fish swimming around. And that's a little more expensive, but I do think they have a student discount. And there is the Visionary Art Museum, which is
my favorite.
A really interesting museum with lots of folk art, and I highly recommend that one too. Does the Robotics MSE program come under STEM OPT extension? I guess you're asking, can you use OPT for the robotics program? And I mean, the answer is yes. There are other rules that surround it, and the international office can give you guidance on how to do that.
So what types of jobs do graduates from this program end up taking? Most of our graduates are taking jobs, broadly speaking, in the robotics, AI, computer vision area. And so, you know, self-driving car companies, Google, Amazon, all sorts of different places. Cora is, when she actually finished up her Robotics MSE while she was working at the Applied Physics Laboratory, and she works in a group called the Intelligent Systems Center, which is their robotics epicenter. And let's see. So there's a question about examples of students that have gone on to start their own companies. Let's see, one of our students who did his master's and PhD in robotics, Kel Garin, started a company called Ready Robotics. And so if you Google Ready Robotics, you'll see Kel and a whole bunch of Hopkins Robotics MSE graduates who work for him. So I think about half of the employees for his company are graduates. That may have changed a little bit as they're growing, but it certainly was when they were a startup company. When they were just 20 people. I think like 12 of them were Hopkins robotics grads. During the COVID-19, what is the teaching mode for international students? I'm teaching. I taught a grad course last semester, and there was a number of students who were here in Baltimore taking the course, and there were a number of students who were overseas taking the course, and they were in different time zones. The way I taught the course was I recorded the lectures and posted them on our course content website called Blackboard. And so students could, I recorded the lecture like a Khan Academy style, with a whiteboard and a talking voice. And then during the scheduled class times, we had problem sessions. And so students would connect in Zoom and ask, I've been working on the problem set. I'm not sure how to begin problem 3. And so we would do problem sessions and work out problems. And I held problem sessions in the morning and also held problem sessions in the evening so that one or the other would be good for students regardless of their time zone. Will be student discounts for MATLAB and SolidWorks. When you're a student, you get a full MATLAB license for free, and I can claim some responsibility for that because during my first 15 years at Hopkins, our licensing was a total pain in the neck, but now we've got a full campus license, and every student and every faculty member can download the full MATLAB with all the toolboxes, and it's legal to install it on your personal computer. You don't have to install it on a university computer, and it's perfectly legal. And SolidWorks, I'm not sure. You know, Cora?
Yeah, there's an educational license that you can download similarly to your personal computer, but you have to be VPN'd in to use it.
Cool.
And
So
if
when
you
is
don't
the
have
ideal time to select courses and meet with the academic advisor? Sorry, Kindle, did I cut you off? I didn't mean to.
Oh, I was just gonna say if you don't happen to not have a PC, like I have a Mac, but there I could still use SolidWorks because there's a like a virtual desktop that you can access that has SolidWorks and everything.
So when is the ideal time to select courses and meet with the academic advisor? I think what you really mean is right now, when in the first semester. The answer to that is that as new students, you won't be able to register for classes until, I'm not sure the date off the top of my head, but it's usually in mid to late June or early July. And so what will happen is that we'll assign you an academic advisor, usually in late May. And that will happen. The only reason I do it in late May is because before that is graduation on our end, and there's just not enough time to do both at the same time. And so in late May, you'll get an email. Late May, maybe the first week of June, you'll get an email letting you know who your advisor will be and with all the information for advising. And then we ask that you meet with that advisor before you have to meet with that advisor before you register for classes because there's an advisor hold on your account. So you will fill out an advising spreadsheet, which asks you to plan out not just the next semester, but sort of what you think you might want to do for the whole course of your academic time at Hopkins. And then each semester you will update that spreadsheet to let us know sort of where you're going and what you're doing. Every semester you will have to meet with your advisor before you can register. And we also ask that you turn that spreadsheet in to me so that we have a record of sort of where you're going and what you're thinking. Did that answer the question? If not, let me know. I can talk more about it.
So let me jump in if I may. So can you see my screen? So this is a spreadsheet you can download from the advising page. that Allison set up on the LCSR website. And it's got a checkout sheet for degree requirements, and then it's got a term-by-term planning sheet, and it's got a list of courses, which is almost always obsolete. We need to update it. So what you want to do is you want to go through and look at courses, and a good place to start looking at courses is to look in the advising manual, because the advising manual, when you scroll down, will suggest courses for different tracks. And then you can go to the online course catalog and look at the course descriptions for these courses. And with the online catalog, you can figure out whether the courses are offered fall or spring. And so what I recommend to my advisees is that they take a look at all the courses in different departments, and they make a list of the courses they want to take for the master's degree. And the problem is you're going to come up with a list of like 25 courses. So you can't take that many. You can take 10. Taking 3 courses is considered to be a full load, 3 graduate courses, not 5 courses. As an undergraduate, you take 5 or 6 courses. As a graduate student, you take 3. And so from the 25 courses that you decide you want to take, prioritize them in the A category that you absolutely positively want to take that course. You don't want to leave Hopkins without it. And the B category is that you really want to take it, but you'd compromise. And the C category is it would be nice. And then try to figure out which ones are offered fall and spring and which ones have prerequisites, and then start lining them up 3 courses a semester, and fit that into a program of study, and then iterate with your advisor on which courses should be taken in which sequence. And so by the time classes start in the fall, before you've actually taken a class, you want to have a plan for 2 years laid out. And that's not a contract with your advisor that your advisor is going to hold you to and say, oh, no, you said you were going to take these courses. But that way, when you change your mind and your interests change and you decide to change your course of study plan, you'll know exactly how it affects your graduation requirements and your track requirements. So I always ask my advisees to work that out in the summer before classes start. And I usually meet with them several times during the summer in order to get that worked out. And the exact nature of the courses depends on what you love. You should take courses that you love. If you take courses that you love, then you're going to work like crazy 7 days a week and learn tons and get great grades and be happy. Any other questions? Going once, going twice.
So we did have a question about our courses like neuroscience and other departments available for us to take. And the answer is, as electives, yes, probably, but your advisor will have to approve them.
Is there an expectation that we have familiarity with Linux, Gazebo, ROS, etc. upon beginning the MSE? No, but you'll have familiarity with it by the time you graduate. And there's a question here. The Robotics MSE website mentions some prerequisite courses in computer science and math. I'm interested in the perception and cognitive track. Would you like to suggest some specific prerequisite course resources that would help me in the track? Well, we've got two living, breathing students here in the which both came from different backgrounds. Would you like to comment on that, either of you?
Sure. So for me, I actually was like quite removed from school before coming back, and I took the summer before starting, I took just like a basic intro to computer science class online just to refresh my programming skills, which was very helpful. I also unfortunately did not heed the advice to take the math methods course, which I definitely would recommend, but I was able to get by because I had also taken just an online linear algebra course that summer, which helped carry me through. So since I didn't take math methods, I would definitely recommend having some type of refresher on linear algebra and basic calculus and things like that. But outside of that, I think I was like all professors are, especially at Hopkins, are very aware that students are coming from different backgrounds, not necessarily just computer science or electrical or mechanical. So I think I was able to, with like some effort, if you don't necessarily have the background in that specific course, with like some additional effort on the side, was able to handle almost every class. But I definitely think refreshing C++, C, and Python skills if you haven't had them in advance is not a bad idea.
Yeah, definitely you can. I kind of do a similar thing. I actually just got like some books, got a data structures book. I hadn't had like a linear algebra background, so I also had to do like an online mini course in that. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely opportunities to learn, and it'll still happen. I've had to learn some differential geometry this semester, so I got a book. But yeah, I think that's always a good idea to come prepared.
So we got a couple of questions that are sort of similar, and the first one is if there are opportunities to research without doing the essay, the research option track or research option, and will there be any limit to the number of students who can work in the labs in the current situation? And the first is yes, you can do research without actually doing it as a formal part of your degree. And a lot of students do, actually. I would say many students do some form of research. You can take it. If you're not doing the research option, you can do a semester of research as a class, as one of your electives. And if you don't want to do that, you can still do research. And basically the way to get started doing research is exactly the same way you would get started doing the research option, which is to read up on the research being done in LCSR and then reach out to faculty who are of interest to you. The second question about, is there going to be a limit of people who can be in the labs? Short answer again is I don't really know. The longer answer is I doubt that it will be as much of a problem as it has been. And so it is likely, if you want to be doing research in the labs and you can, connect yourself with a faculty member who will help you with those projects, and you will, if you can get involved in their projects, then you should be able to be involved in the labs if you're around.
Allison, I have to step away for 1 minute. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay. Will there be a way for us to get virtually involved in our cohort before classes start in the fall? I really hope so. We are going to attempt to start putting together some sort of online get-togethers, probably starting in early May, and then people can start connecting that way. I'm going to be honest with you, we're doing the best we can. Sometimes these virtual mixers are not great, so we'll do what we can do. We, because of some FERPA guidelines, really can't share student information unless they say we can share. So that's government guidance. Unless you guys tell us we can share your information. So we'll probably have an opt-in system for people to be able to start getting to know each other rather than sending out information.
In an informal capacity, so Tim and I are part of the same cohort, and after our first orientation day, our cohort kind of created a Facebook group that we've kept active even like throughout, which has really helped, especially with like the pandemic and stuff. Not so much the last few months because everybody's been busy trying to wrap up their degrees, but before that we would do game nights, and just like it was a forum to like share memes and chat and like keep up with each other. So I would recommend potentially, if someone wants to spearhead that, even doing that in an informal capacity.
Yeah, I second that.
I know that there's also, in terms of the larger LCSR community, there's a Slack channel that many of the graduate students are on. I'm not part of it, so I don't know how active it is, but my understanding is that there's at least some activity on it. And the graduate committee for LCSR is planning events and regular meetups. So I do know that that's also happening. And you could start taking part in those as after you have accepted the offer and have been enrolled into LCSR, as in once you have your JET ID and things like that, because we can't give you access until you've done those things. And there's another question that came in during registration that's, can I have a minor degree during the master? No, minors really are for undergrad, basically, at Hopkins. You can do a dual degree with another master's program, but that would be, you'd have to apply to the other program and be accepted, and it's got other rules involved. So if that's something you're really interested in, I would talk to me directly. I don't know that I would recommend it though. I don't know that it actually adds that much value to you. The second part of the question is, if you want to take extra courses, what does it cost? At Hopkins, the tuition is a flat rate for a full-time tuition. So typically the full-time load is between 9 and 12 credits. Some students can manage up to 15. I do not recommend doing that. So just keep that in mind. You'll be paying full-time tuition regardless of the number of credits you take, but we do stop you from overloading. And I will come and yell at you, and your advisor will come and yell at you, and things like that. So if that's where I would start with. You can take some summer courses or intersession courses where you will be paying by the credit, and those have different prices. So that's a little complicated, and you can stay for more semesters if you really, really want to. However, if you finish the degree and you're an international student, then I am required to have you graduate. So please keep that in mind. And we can work from there. Questions about that, just come talk to me and I will help you figure out the best ways to plan if you're trying to do more than what the program suggests. So. Lewis, I think you're muted again. Lewis, I think we missed that because you were muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you think I know how to do this by now. Students asked, are courses like neuroscience and other departments available for us to take? Yes, so you can take courses, you technically can take courses that won't count towards your robotics degree. And however, if you think it's relevant, then you should discuss it with your advisor because we can make exceptions in cases where something's not listed on our advising manual, but it makes perfect sense in terms of the pedagogy and what you're studying, then we can make exceptions.
And I can actually follow that up a little bit too. If you're something you want to take that has absolutely nothing to do with robotics, you absolutely can. I've seen students take like freshman level US politics kinds of courses, or I think I saw someone take a dance course, or, you know, things like that. And those are absolutely available and you can do them. Just keep in mind that if you're doing them from a grade, you will be getting a grade and it will go on your transcript.
So we should probably wrap things up. But I put earlier the email addresses for everybody in the chat, and I'll do that again to make sure that you have it. And I want to encourage everybody to, if you have questions, then please feel free to reach out to us. If you are reaching out to me, then please put the word advising in the subject line. I tell my advisees to put the word advising in the subject line because it helps me find their emails in my email queue, which is like way too large. And I'll be happy to respond. Any closing thoughts, our wonderful students, or Allison?
I think the thing I would say to close is that if you have questions, it is much better for you to ask them. So please ask them. It's better to do it now. I know that I sometimes get people who are asking lots of questions and are apologizing for asking questions, and you don't have to. Please don't. I would much rather you ask the questions and make sure this is the right place for you than for you to get here and be miserable. We don't want that. And the other thing I want to tell you is that, and this is, I think, something you should know, is that we do not admit anyone we do not think can succeed in this program. And so I want you to keep that in mind as you're going through the program, assuming you join us, that I know you've heard some things about how it's tough and things like that, but I have absolute confidence that every single one of you will do very well in this program.
Any closing thoughts? Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yep.
Yes, sir. I have one question. First of all, thank you so much for organizing this session. And I don't know if this is the right place to ask this or not, but I just wanted to know, is the tuition fee paid semester-wise or is it paid annually?
That's an easy question to answer. It is paid by semester.
Okay, thank you so much.
Kinchel, Timothy, Cora, any closing thoughts?
Just don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other questions.
Yeah, happy to. I know speaking to like current students when I was thinking about it was really helpful to me. So I'm happy to pay it forward and answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I think I actually went to like the same session or something similar, like when I was deciding to come here. So yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, just email me.
So a huge vote of thanks to Cora and Timothy and Kinjal, who are all super busy with their coursework and research and stuff. So thank you so much for taking time out of your packed schedule to spend time with some of our prospective students. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, happy to do it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well that concludes our program. Thank you everybody, and for your attention and for your interest. And if we bungled and not answered your question, then please reach out to me or Allison or anybody, and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.